What's up, world changers? Welcome to the Mission Driven Impact YouTube channel, where we help nonprofits and social entrepreneurs raise awareness for their organization by clarifying their message, getting the word out, and building a loyal community of fans and supporters. Now, in today's video, we're going to be talking about one of my just favorite things to do, which is how to interview someone for a case study. But you could also use this for an impact story, for an employee highlight. I mean, really for anything. Anytime you need to get a story and tell a story, this is a framework that you can rely on. Ultimately, an interview comes down to how to extract someone's story from them, how to put them in the spotlight, and then how to tell that story in a way that benefits everyone involved. And this is important because your story needs to do two things. And a lot of businesses make the mistake of doing either one or the other. So your story needs to amplify and edify the person whose story that you're telling, but the story also needs to be told in the way that measurably gets results for your business. In the social impact space, the most important assets we have are trust and connection. In other words, we're dealing with relationships, and that is why case studies and impact stories and all these things, just stories of people doing cool things, can be so powerful. It's because you can really lean into the emotional side of your work, that's connection, but it also gives you a great chance to be thorough, to be detailed, and to prove that you really know what you're doing, and that's that trust component. Think about case studies and impact stories as sort of like long-form testimonials. The social proof is there, but you can really dig into the process to kind of bring in clarity around what it might be like to work with you. And then you can be really detailed about the problems people were struggling with and the results that they got by working with you. And so needless to say, especially if you're a donation-based organization, these stories need to be a top priority for your marketing and your fundraising and development strategy. So get ready to take a few notes, like and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and let's dive right in. All right, tip number one is to start with a strategy. Now, anytime you tell a story, anytime you go into an interview, anytime you produce content at all, you need to do it with intention. So before you even sit down to schedule an interview or write something, think, what do you want readers to feel when they're reading this? What action do you want them to do after they read it? What business goal is this activity tied to? Why are we spending time in our working day to work on this? And how is this story specifically going to get you closer to that business goal? As far as the strategy of the story itself goes, great stories capture transformation and also triumph. And so, what does this mean for your business? You want your ideal customers and clients, your target audience, people who are just perfect to work with you. You want them to read a story of someone you've already helped, and you want them to be thinking, oh wow, like I have the same goals. I want the same things. I am facing similar obstacles and similar challenges. And I see that this company or organization helped someone else with similar goals and challenges go from A to B, that transformation. And so I bet they can help me too. It's all about communicating the transformation and showing your ideal customers and clients, your target audience, that the transformation that they want is possible. Tip number two is to hone in on the essential information. This is more of a logistical tip because most of the time when you're interviewing someone, your time is going to be limited. You're going to be able to cover a lot less ground than you initially think, or especially that you would hope for. And so it's important to, build rapport, make the person feel comfortable, but then, don't waste time. Focus on getting to what's important. So what is the most important information in a case study or an impact story or things like that? Well, just like we said that you want to capture the transformation, you really want to find out what did they really want? What did this person really want? Who did they want to become? What was happening in their life that, why is it that they wanted this thing? And then what was really standing in their way? Maybe there's an external problem, like what the problem looked like, but then how did it make them feel? And just on that note, I think something that's really powerful is to ask for fact and then ask for feeling, right? So you want to ask like a follow-up question. So, what happened? What did you want? What was standing in your way? All these kind of what questions. And then how did that make you feel? Why were you doing this? Why did you want this? And that is a great way to really start to be able to piece together a story that resonates. Again, logistically, you can come into the interview with maybe 5 to 7 pre-written questions. If that makes you feel a little bit more comfortable. I mean, honestly, sometimes I walk into an interview with like 1 or 2 questions. Sometimes not at all, although I don't recommend that. But you can definitely overdo it, I think is my point. So maybe 5 to 7 questions. Don't plan on asking them all, because the meat, that juicy stuff of the story, is in the follow-up. So ask one of your pre-written questions and then follow up and have a conversation about that, right? It's about that real human connection, that real relationship. How would you be talking to someone if you were interviewing someone casually, just making conversation with someone at a bar, or you're sitting with your friends across the table eating, and they're telling you a story, and you kind of dig in, you'd ask questions to find out what you really want to know. It's the exact same thing. Don't let the supposed formality of an interview kind of throw you away from that human connection. Oh, and a bonus tip, just while I'm thinking about it, is feel free to record the call if you're doing it over Zoom or audio. Feel free to bring an audio recorder or record on your phone if you're recording or interviewing in person. And then you can transcribe this interview, pay someone on Fiverr just a few bucks, or use a software tool like otter.ai. That's what I use a lot, and it will just, it'll ease the pressure and the stress of feeling like you have to capture everything that this person is saying, or that you have to go back and listen to a half hour or an hour of an interview. And that way you can kind of just get the exact words, and it does make the interview process go a little bit more quickly. Tip number 3 is to position yourself as the guide. Now, what do I mean by this? I am going to make another video kind of explaining the framework that we use to tell stories, the story brand formula, and it's kind of a formula just how most great stories throughout the canon and history have been told. And so if you don't want to miss out on that video, subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell, and you'll get a notification when it comes out. But in essence, you want to make them the hero. The person whose story you're telling, they are the hero of the story. And you'll hear me say this about your business all the time. Your customers, your clients, they are the hero of your story. But in every story where the hero overcomes conflict, they have a guide, right? Luke Skywalker has Yoda. Harry Potter has Dumbledore. I think you know what I'm trying to say. And so as the guide, it is your job to make sure that the hero gets to their happy ending. And so you want to position your business as the guide. How do you do that? Empathy and authority. So, and this can be done, it doesn't have to be elaborate. As far as empathy goes, what's one thing you could say to kind of communicate the idea of like, I get it, I understand what you're going through, I understand your pain. When I do this with my coaching clients, we start off with statements like, we know what it's like to feel like this. We are like you, we're also frustrated by, or no one should have to experience this. Those are great empathy statements. As far as authority goes, not only do you want to say, I get this, I understand your pain, you also want to demonstrate that I can help you overcome this. And so, right, on your website and stuff, you can do this with client logos and testimonials and things like that. When you're doing an interview or a case study, this is really where you can dig into the process or kind of give a preface to the process and say, through our signature system, we do this, if you have a proprietary system. Or you could say, we've helped dozens of companies do this as well, right? What's something that you can just take that trust a step further and say, we know what we're doing, and that is why we were able to help this person get this result. Tip number 4, and I mean, this is just so important. If you only remember one thing from this video, it's got to be this. You've got to pursue equity in storytelling. This is something that unfortunately just has not been talked about a lot, and I see some people starting to have this conversation, and I think that's amazing. I think in the social impact space, we really need this talk the most. And it's because the way we tell stories reveals a lot about the way that we look at the world and our implicit prejudices and biases and things like that. And so anytime we're telling someone else's story, we have a duty, again, to amplify their voice and what they're doing, their projects, to lift them up, to edify them, and to not invite saviorism into the stories that we tell. So what do I mean by that? I mean, you don't have to search very far in the nonprofit or the social impact space, philanthropy space, development, especially global development, to see that the way we tell stories a lot represent the communities we serve as being disparaged, as having so much lack and so much scarcity. And in fact, it's even caught up with this almost perverse idea of service that we have, which is that these people have nothing and they need something. If only they could just, someone could provide for them. And so our organization steps in and fills this gap. And that is just so much of a savior complex. That story not only is an ineffective story, but it perpetuates implicit biases we have. And it is just a very wrongful, a very unjust way of representing these people in these communities. That's why in my agency, we advocate for strengths-based communication. And this is not a term that I coined. I don't remember where I picked it up, but we're not the only ones doing this, thankfully. And instead of telling a story from that angle of lack and disparagement and saviorism, we choose to look at people and choose to look at communities and choose to look at service out of abundance, out of leveraging the strengths that people and communities already have, seeing the vibrancy and the vitality of the livelihood of the people in the communities whose stories we are telling. Remember that when we tell a story, it's not just to get business results, although, from a marketing perspective, that might be one reason that we focus on stories. But when we just think about a story in general, or the reason why humans are, why stories are such powerful tools for human connection, it's because we want to say, oh, look at these amazing people doing these amazing things. We want to amplify those things. We want to say this is such a cool thing that's happening. This is such a cool person who exists. This is such a cool organization that exists, or something like that. And we've got to share that, right? We have got to amplify that, not twist this into something that is, will prove that they needed us and that we, thank God, stepped in and filled the gap. You know what I'm trying to say? Anyway, all of that, I think, rests on seriously acknowledging and recognizing our implicit biases, doing the work, the internal work, the heart work that it takes to overcome those, and to seriously consider what it truly means to make someone else the hero of the story, to make someone else the hero of our story as a brand or as an organization. I think when you approach it from that mindset, that heart space, telling a story that truly serves in a genuine way, I think becomes a lot easier. So all that to say, I get it. Interviewing people can be a huge challenge. It can be very kind of scary and uncertain if you haven't done it before. And even if you have, I can't tell you the amount of times I thought I killed it in an interview and went to write the story and realized I didn't have half the information I needed. And so, I understand that this can be a big daunting task for a lot of people. Are there any questions you have about the interview process before you go into it, after you interview someone, the story that you write that comes out of it? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, so I can respond, and then I can create a video, another video around it. Until then, like and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss on future videos, and I will see you in the next one.